introduction. And I did forget to remind people, I am working on that audio. I've got my audio guy trying to adjust that a little bit. So if it cranked your ears out a little bit, you know what? I'm a product of the 80s. So, you know, it was like Aerosmith, Motley Crue, Run DMC, Beastie Boys. So I'm used to playing it loud, even as, you know, as I said many times, Nick, I try to be the hippest grandpa in America. So I don't mind the loud music and the loud noise, but I know some people are like, oh, man, like I'll go to the Seahawks game and have it rock my ears, but I don't want to hear a loud introduction on a YouTube video. All right, man, I'm going to dive into my one PrehistorHAWK video. So if you're new, one of the things that I talk about all the time is the PrehistorHAWK era, HAWK, which to me is 1976 through 1999. And to me, it's like one of the kind of the golden ages of Seahawks football. It's a time when, you know, Nick LeBeau was probably, what 10 or 15 years old maybe, or not even around, right? But it's also a time that, you know, I think for someone like me who grew up in the Seattle area, went to the Seahawks game, we've had season tickets in our family forever. You know, a lot of the fun stuff that took place on Monday Night Football, and it was special teams stuff. Some great special teams memories. So each time that we do this show, I'm going to pull out at least one, if not more, but we have so much to talk about this week. I've just got one for you. So here's where it was, Nick LeBeau. It was November of 1981. Jim Zorn. Now, I think I've mentioned I wore number 10 in high school and junior high and high school when I played football because of Jim Zorn. He was a lefty. I was a lefty. I held for PATs and field goals in high school and wanted to do what I got to play college football, but they already had a senior that was doing it ahead of me. So I loved this. And Efren Herrera was our kicker that they used to do fun stuff. And Jack Patera was the head coach that did crazy things. Yeah. So I'm going to show the play, and then we'll come back and I'll play it just one more time. But here's the play itself. It was pretty neat times. That is, if I can get it to play here. Oh, man, what is going on? Let's get it to rock and roll. There we go. Now let's see if I can blow it up to a bigger screen here.
Oh, my.
All right, so let me play it back from the beginning here. Monday Night Football. Boom. Right across to my guy, Sherman Smith. Now, I never say the name Sherman because Coach Smith was my old mentor. But there he is, man. Coach Smith doing his thing. And I tell you what, Nick, I mean, I was about 10 years old, and I remember seeing these type of plays and going, man, that's like, this is what makes me want to play football. I mean, you can see the kicker doing his thing there. You know, he goes sprinting out to the left out there, and all Zorn does is he gets it, and he forward pitches it, and you can't see it from this angle, and they didn't have the all-22 for us back then. But Coach Smith, Sherman Smith, who coached Marshawn Lynch, Coach Eddie George, and oh, by the way, he's got a movie out right now called Show Me the Father that has some incredible stories, and he's involved in one of them. It's actually movie theaters right now, so plug for him on that one. Coach Smith is lined up on the left wing. He comes across. Zorn pitches the ball forward to him. And boom, there he goes around. You can see great seal block. David Hughes had the block down there, 46. I mean, that is just awesome blocking. Right? I mean, boom, pushed black. That guy was the right wing on the right side. He ends up blocking all the way to the end zone. Bunch of great dudes. So that was part of the PrehistorHAWK era, which is why when I do this show, I'm wearing one of many PrehistorHAWK items of clothing that I have found on various locations, from eBay to Amazon to downtown Seattle, searching for things. And this must be Kingdom, Seattle, Washington. Not sure why they put 1977 on it, because 1976 is when it opened. But hey, you know what? No one's going to fault them for stuff. All right, man. So we covered that, but Nick, we gotta dive into this thing called Seahawks football, and man, it was just not a good situation. So before we break into special teams, I think we'd kind of be idiotic if we really didn't talk about the game itself. So just give me some of your overall impressions of the game, whether it's individuals, whether it's the coaches, whether what is just your take now that you're a couple days removed from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, after every loss, there's going to be a lot of negativity, but I will give some positive notes to start off what I have to say. Props to Tyler Lockett. I mean, he has carried
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
confident in saying he has carried this offense. His deep playability, his big playability. He's a fantastic receiver, great route runner, burning the defenses. And I mean, we wouldn't win. We'd be 0-2 without him. And also props to the defensive tackles. I knew Poona Ford was going to be a great defensive tackle this year, that he was going to step up, but really a guy who soared in was a underdog, came up through the depth chart, through our practice squad. Brian Monet, phenomenal player. He's been playing good these last couple weeks. He was questionable in practice with an injury, so hopefully he gets over that because he was a key part in us stopping Derrick Henry in those first 2 quarters. And what I really have to get into going on Derrick Henry, what I think really happened to why he had such a breakout second half and so many yards, and just an overall great game, because he made his game in the second half. A lot of it had to do with our offense. Our offense had very quick, short drives, which led to the defense being on the field a lot more. And that Titans offense runs through the run game. See what I did there?
Yeah, man, I loved it. I loved it. Definitely picked up on it. Definitely picked up on it. In fact, you know what? For that, I'm going to give you one of these. Courtesy of my son. Go ahead.
So yeah, what I was saying is, due to all these quick, short drives by the offense, the defense really just got tired. And Derrick Henry's a workhorse back whose job is basically in the first half to wear you out so then he can feast in the second half. Our defensive tackles got really tired. Our entire defense got pretty tired because they were on the field so much. So what we need to do to improve from that going into Minnesota, because Minnesota also has a very good running back in Dalvin Cook. And he ran all over us last season, earlier in the season when he played up here, is we need to have longer drives, more run game, more quick middle passes, chewing some clock.
So let me ask you something on that real quick. Let me ask you something on that before you keep going. Because I think that the thing around here is, right, like let Russ cook, then we get the quick long bomb end zone, or long bomb to Tyler Lockett for the touchdowns, and it's like, okay, well, we thought DK was the long guy, so there's the part of, I think, all of Seattle that's like, wow, we're letting Russ cook, and he's throwing for 300 plus yards and touchdown. And what I love hearing you say is talking about how there's, you've heard me talk about time of possession being massively overrated, but there's timely possessions. Big difference, right? Time of possession versus timely possessions. Because obviously, last part of the first half, we go down score in a minute, right? Well, you wouldn't want that to be a long drive and eat up clock, but there is those other times where you do want to chew it up and all those things. So I really, really like what you're saying there, man, because I would definitely agree with that. I would definitely agree with that your offense sets up your defense and they're eating up the time, but you got to chew it up at the right time and not, maybe set up the quick free passes or what have you. And I love what you said about Derrick Henry. I'm on the record on multiple shows and multiple things I've done when I've been talking to different groups. By easily my AFC choice is Tennessee. So I wasn't that surprised when I was doing a prediction show for somebody else. I actually had this as a loss for Seattle. And then I had us on a pretty good run after that, because as a coach, I've always said, lose early and get it done. Season, the best 3 seasons I ever had as a coach, we ended up losing 1 game early on because we would schedule teams that were way tougher than us. I didn't like to schedule the Sisters of the Poor, as we used to call it back then. Not as PC now to say, but that was the phrase that coaches would use. Man, we didn't do that. We would try to schedule the toughest team possible because I wanted to find out, what did our team truly have? What did my coaches have? You go out and beat teams by 28, 35 points, you get this kind of confidence that's a little bit too much. Yeah. The fans get the swagger, we're all great. Hey, man, I would rather lose a game now and then go on a nice run than get to week 14, 15, 16, 17 and lose the game then. And now you don't have much time to fix it, right?
Which is what happened to us last season. I mean, we went, 5-0 against the Falcons, the Patriots, the Dolphins, the Vikings, all teams who missed the playoffs, which really built up our confidence. And then once we got those tougher teams, Arizona, Buffalo, the Rams.
Yeah.
We fell apart, and that kind of wrecked our season.
Yeah. So that leads us to kind of what, our when we were talking about last week, our kind of our ceilings and our floors in terms of the records. You had mentioned, I think 13-4 was that what you had, or 14-3 was your ceiling?
I
think you had 13-4, and I also had 13-4, and then my floor was 10-7. I think your floor was 11-6. So you had kind of a two game swing there. I have a 3-game swing there. But I honestly think in what is now the new black and blue division, for old timers like me, they'll remember that it used to be the NFC Central with the Bears and the Packers and those guys. They beat each other up all the time, and one team would make it to the playoffs, and someone would say, oh, they're going to be 14-2, and then they'd all end up 9-7 basically. Well, I think that's going to happen. Like, I honestly think Seattle can win this division, and they can win it with an 11-6 record, right? Because we're all going to beat each other up, but it might mean only one team goes. But so you try to find the caveats in a loss, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to lose, but if you're going to lose to an AFC team.
Oh yeah.
Right? Because that doesn't we don't lose any tiebreakers. So that's a massive upswing for us. And then you hope the other teams in our division are going to lose to not only us, but lose to another NFC team. Right. Or the right teams lose to it, right? So I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. But man, Derrick Henry, a beast. He's the national high school record. He was until this last year. Held the national high school record. Loved watching him all the time. I mean, and he had 35 carries. And I got to say this, Nick. Wow. Have you heard of the term load bearing in sports? It's okay if you haven't, man. That's why this is live TV or live YouTube. So load bearing, like in the NBA, LeBron James, some of those other guys, they'll take a night off. You pay money to go see a game. Mm-hmm. I remember the first time I ever saw it was with Shaquille O'Neal. The one time he was coming to Seattle because he was playing for Boston, I think, and he had the night off for load bearing, meaning they need to rest him a little bit. And I thought, man, here my brother and I have come to this game. We want to see him now. It was awesome to see the big dude sitting on the stands, but he didn't play. Baseball's been doing it for a while with pitchers, right? Pitch count, all that load bearing. NFL started doing it just with the running backs a few years back. Other players, Russell, he's the epitome of the opposite, right? Like plays every game, he's the Iron Man. But running backs have been this kind of play on first and second down only, 18 to 22 carries. Man, I thought it was awesome. Now, not against us, but awesome that a running back was going 35 carries. And on their 2-minute drive, very rare. And their 2-minute drive was nothing but throwing to running backs out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. All 7 plays on their scoring drive in a 2-minute drill was to running back. And
they have good receivers. They have Julio Jones. They have Julio Jones.
Yeah. So before we go to that, that's the last point I want to hit on, because we didn't even cover that. Who would be their comparison, right? Like we always talk about in Seattle, man, we've got Russ, and we've got Carson, and we've got DK and Lockett, and we've got a defense we think is okay. Does Tennessee have that same parallel?
Yeah, I think they do.
Who are their 2 receivers, right?
Julio Jones, who is who will go down as one of the all-time best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah. They have AJ over there.
AJ Brown, who, if you only watched the Seahawks game, you probably think he's a wide receiver 3, a scrub off the bench, but he's a very good wide receiver. Derrick Henry, of course.
He's legit. He's a Hall of Famer.
Tannehill is a very underrated quarterback.
Absolutely. He's more than a game manager. He can make things happen. And their defense, I mean, last week they got it crushed, but their defense, their defense is really off the charts. But it's they kind of play like us, the last couple of games. I think they're still going to kind of find their own. They've had some new players come in. And that's the one piece when we talk about like Trey Flowers and others, like, let's get some new players. It takes 3 or 4 games to work those guys in, right, to find a rhythm and everything else. So.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, Trey Flowers is used to the system. While he does mess up on certain aspects of the game, maybe not putting his hands up, going for the ball, a certain penalty, taking wrong angles, giving some more separation. He knows this defense. He knows
the defense, man. Yeah.
Been in the system for a few years now. And I mean, the rest of the guys on our depth chart are all new to the team.
It's funny how, and I'm a life lesson coach guy. I mean, forever, and I was lucky to have a mentor that taught this way. Both Sherman Smith and Chuck Tarbox, who are the legendary high school coach in this area, constantly teaching life lessons. But I always kind of relate the game to life itself with the fans, right? Imagine, Nick, if you're probably, I know you're in high school. I don't know if you've had a summer job yet or whatever, but I always joke with my buddies who just start ripping on Coach Carroll. Fire Coach Carroll, fire Coach Norton, get Trey Flower there. I'm like, hey, did you guys have a day this week that you like weren't on? Like that you messed up? You did. How would you like if somebody came into your office like, you need to be fired because you missed an email? It's like, man, hey, break, man. We'll be all right.
Yeah, these guys are people too. I mean, they certainly read what people are saying, and it is not an easy job to be an NFL cornerback, especially going up against one of the best all-time receivers in Julio Jones.
Yeah. What you can't do is, get pass interference call on you after get a unsportsmanlike when you've taunted a guy after he's run by you by about 3 yards.
Oh yeah,
you can't do that stuff. It's a lot of stuff we'll be talking about tomorrow. A lot of illustrating. But if we had made an extra point, this is my segue into the special teams videos here. If we'd made an extra point, Nick, are people freaking out as much? Or are we just like, man, what a great game. We pulled it out in overtime.
Well, from the
or are we dissecting it like we are right now?
I think we would still be dissecting it. But from the Seahawks side of it, a lot of 12s would just kind of blow past it. Oh, yeah, we won. A little too close for comfort. Got to improve on some things, but we got the win. But then, say that happened, you look from the Tennessee side of it, they missed a field goal earlier in the game. So if we add, say they made their field goal, we made their extra point, doesn't change. They still win. So, there's definitely, you can say all that stuff in hindsight, but, if they got the same opportunity to get those points on the board.
Yep, they did.
They would have won.
So let's go to some special team stuff, and we'll talk about the butterfly effect, right? And that's what you're talking about. The butterfly effect is when something, obviously something takes place, and it can happen all the time. I mean, if I take one step here, it changes my whole life. If I take one step here, it's always happening. But I've always said, as a coach or at clinics, that there's going to be 5 plays in a game that are truly going to have the butterfly effect, not counting the final play. If it's a game-winning field goal at the end or something like that. But there's going to be 5 plays in the first 3 quarters. They're going to really change the landscape of a game. So some of these aren't necessarily that, but I think you'll see a little bit of what I'm talking about here. So this right here is his first field goal. Now, as I go through this for anybody who's watching or watches it later, I've pulled out some plays. Nick and I have talked about some of them. Some of them we haven't, because I want Nick to just be able to see them and kind of reflect on them as he sees them or what he might remember from that time. So here's what I want people to just take notice of. This is his 36th consecutive field goal right here. That's what we're just going to see now. It's just the 36th consecutive. If we get it to rock and roll, there we go. Haven't been on the Telestrator Live for a little while. All right. So there you go. Now, notice the hash that he's on. Okay, left hash.
Yep.
Kicks it. It makes it not too bad. I mean, pretty simple. I mean, he's Mr. Automatic. Definitely Mr. Automatic. So that was 36 consecutive field goal. He's the hottest kicker in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, who do you want, Nick, right? Who do you want? So left hash drills it right through there. All right. So now I'm going to come to a little different spot in the game, which I think is really important. This is the roughing the kicker. Now, this was the first time in the game that I actually paused it. Usually, as I watch the game, I mean, I'm sitting with this. I got my wife sitting next to me, and she's pausing it for me. And I'm like, okay, take it back. And she's rewinding. I'm getting notes and everything. But usually I kind of let the game flow for a little bit. But this was the first play that I actually let it I had to watch it a bunch of times. So I'm going to let it play first, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to do kind of my first little illustrating piece here. So what we get here is, I mean, you weren't sure whether or not there was roughing the kicker. The announcer announced it that there was.
Yeah.
Right, and then you get to see a nice replay of it, which was great, man. I love the split screen. Now, let me just stop it. Let me go back to just that spot right there. Okay, first off, he's doing what I love about him, and there's not a lot of kickers. This has just become popular probably in the last 5 years. This right here, this new nose drop deal where you drop instead of dropping it flat, because usually what you're going to do is you're going to take the football. Let me bring myself back to normal size here for just a second.
Oh.
Switch it, man. I got to switch it. I always forget to switch sides to come into it. you're going to take your football, which I have right here for you, and you're going to basically hold it at an angle like this. So you're going to have it basically at an angle. You're not holding it straight like this. You're not holding it like this. You're going to hold it basically in this type of an angle, and then you see guys sometimes they'll let go with both hands. Some guys will let go with one hand. Pat McAfee's one of the best of all time at doing it. But next thing you know, people start kind of dropping it down a little bit, but it was still about getting your leg powered up to it. Then they realized, man, if we could start dropping the football like this, as long as we don't hit the point of the football, we could get it to we can really control it. Because it used to be, hey, can I get the ball to turn over? That used to be the huge thing. If they could
a lot of
get the ball to spiral over, right? They want to get the spiral over. Well, now they did this. Now, do you know, Nick, and I haven't asked you this question, do you know what sport they drop the ball like this when they kick it as they're running?
Rugby.
So now you have this rugby tackle, which everybody started to do. It went from tackling people in the chest to tackling in the thighs. So now let's drop the football like this. And if you watch rugby, they're constantly dropping the ball like this and giving the ball to turn over. Hey, amazing that the NFL football has changed quite a bit over the last decade or so as well, to a little bit more rounded in. There's a lot of things that are taking place there. So what's amazing with him, though, man, is that look at what yard line he's doing it from. Most dudes are doing it from the other side, like the other 50. He's doing it from basically the 35-yard line when he steps into the kick and does it, right? So he's doing it from there and get it. But now, here's right here. I mean, it's not like do some acting. It's holy cow. We almost lost our punter for the season. Yeah. Right? I mean, he's a tough dude. But man, oh man, his foot's still in the ground. Guy goes after him. These guys back here are like, yeah, who cares? We're going to rough him up, right? I mean, that is massively dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
But the problem is it's a clean shot at it. Here's where the issue takes place. And this is why I had to go back and keep rewinding it. And I have it a little bit drawn up on my board here.
They really went for that block.
Yeah, they did. They really can. Let's see if I can get it a little bit. So basically, they have one guy who's going to push a guy. And I have a little different return set up here. I was just drawing up a punt return. But they have a little different return set here. But they're basically having one guy blocks a lineman sideways, and then another guy comes through. Well, what you'll see here is as the guys are starting to go with it, let me get here. You can start to see right here that there's guards getting pushed, and the linebacker comes through. So he's right back. Get the rewind. He's this guy right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see him right here, that guy. He's the guy who's going to get there because these guys aren't necessarily going for the block. You can even see this guy right here. He's going at an angle to try to get the guy.
They're going for the tackle.
Yeah. So they're trying to push out, push in. They all have different angles here that they're going at. You're usually trying to get your linebackers to get the block. So what you'll see is this guy goes through there. Man, oh man. He starts to get through the bunch. And he goes right. I mean, basically just all the way untouched.
Yeah.
I mean, look at him once he goes. I mean, literally just nobody even touches him.
Right.
That's just a personal protector. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. Make your comment.
Yeah, you see, I think that's Homer there, the running back.
Yes.
There are two linebackers that kind of just rush in and blitz. He picks up one, and then the other guy just goes free. Let's see.
And not only that, it's not only the other linebacker, it's the guy who crossed the guard's face, so the defensive tackle. Yeah. He ends up shooting across. All he's trying to do is open up a hole, but because he gets inside, and you're always taught you must protect your inside gap. Mm-hmm. Well, that left guard, as he's backpedaling, you create a very tight umbrella. But you make sure no one gets to your inside gaps. If they're going to rush, the rule is if you get blocked from the outside, that's on the punter or the holder and the kicker and PAT field goal. If it gets blocked up the middle, that's on your guys that are up front. But very evident here that, man, these guys are going at an angle, but this guy gets such a good push inside the gap that, yeah, these two linebackers are coming, but Homer has to pick up a defensive lineman who's not actually a defensive lineman because you always put faster guys in on punt return and stuff. But because he picked him up.
And they really came in the edge. So the guy, if you rewind it a bit, you see this guy on the left kind of.
This side?
Yeah, the left edge. No, the blocker.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, left wing. Yeah, left wing over here. Yep.
So instead of kind of everyone pushing in, they kind of stick to their thing, and then all of a sudden this guy is getting double teamed while the
Yep, exactly.
blitzer totally just goes free.
And you can see, you're right. He's gone this defensive end, as you'd call it on punt return. He's going outside. That guy went cross face of the guard inside, and because it didn't get picked up. So they obviously saw something on film that made them think, man, we can get Homer to pick up. So like they looked at last week's film and saw, man, Homer picks up somebody that comes from the right side. We think we can get to it, and man, he's close to do it. So while a lot of people were upset, like, oh, he could have hurt our guy, I look at it and go, man, we got to coach that up.
Yeah.
Right? Because every team now is going to look at that and go, okay, let's do that. And then the problem with coaching is you over-focus, right? It's like we're kind of doing now and stuff. You over-focus on one thing, which means you have to give up time on something else. So they're going to over-focus on correcting that, which means something else in the world of football is going to be let up. And my example is always when I do other thing I do at clinics is I'll say, okay, let's say the Seahawk represents everything a person knows about football. And I, as a football coach, this panel is everything I know about the game of football after 27 years. But this football represents everything there is about the game of football to know. Mm-hmm. Right? So you constantly have to learn. And that's why, man, you just can't ever get it perfect.
One thing to point out that I really haven't been heard talking, that's really kind of a bigger change that goes on the special teams is this is our first year with our new special teams coordinator.
Oh man.
Yep. Our former guy, Brian Snyder, had to step down for other reasons. I know he took some time off at the beginning of last season, but was able to return. But then he fully resigned at the end of the year. So Larry Izzo got the job. He's been with the team for a while, but still, I mean, it's a change.
Nick, I could select 20 dudes probably that I know that I could have done this show with. None of them would have had that information, which is why I wanted to do it with you. I knew that they brought in a new special teams coach because I know every special teams coach we've had because I love them all. I mean, back to Rusty Tillman, who was really popular dude back in the 80s with the Seahawks and other guys. But the fact that you were able to bring that up as a massive fact, right? I mean, a new coach coming in on something that is 1/3 of the game, and you got to take time to do that, and you got to get to know the players, get to know the personnel. It takes a while to get guys in the right spots.
For sure.
That's a great call on your part. So
thank you.
All right, man. Let's. In fact, you're going to do it. Yeah, man. You are coming with it tonight. All right. Let's look at the next one here. I've got a total of I got four more, and one's kind of a double header piece here. So, all right. So now PAT. This is after one of the touchdowns, which people are, most of the time you think PAT, and this isn't the one that was missed at the end. Okay, so now here comes PAT. Now, Nick, don't say anything because we talked about this before the show. Just watch it, and then but don't say anything yet because you know where I'm going to go with this one. All right, so this is the PAT after I think the second touchdown, maybe. All right, so there's PAT, second touchdown. Okay, that's all I'm going to show. Don't say anything, Nick. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later as we go to the next one. So let me click out to that. Lots of highlights going on. All right. So now, here's the thing. Here's the next PAT, Nick.
Okay.
All right. So PAT's coming. And he drills it. Now, I'll talk about protection and some of those things in a second. But now, Nick, what did you notice about the last spin? We talked about it beforehand, right? That you picked up on. What did you notice about the previous PAT compared to this PAT?
They were both on the right hash.
This one was on the right hash. Last one.
Oh, was the left one?
Yeah, you're thinking overtime. You're thinking ahead in overtime.
Yep. That's
right. So here you go. So I mean, now I would be willing to bet that again, most people aren't picking up on this in the game, but he's always doing this. It's like he's kind of testing the waters a little bit, maybe feeling the wind. A lot of stuff, especially at Lumen Field. But to think he's not going the direction that he misses. Okay, so that's important to note. But the direction he's going towards the Hawks nest, he's on the left hash, and then in the same quarter, when we score again, he comes out and he kicks the extra point from the right hash. And a lot of kickers are doing that, but most of them kind of stay on the one side or the other because they either kind of push the ball a little bit or they don't. Now, back to another piece that concerns me here a little bit. All right. And it's this.
Got it.
Right. I gotta erase that one. That is good. Right there. All right. So now it's the same rule, same philosophy, right? When you're doing any sort of a punt protection or a PAT protection, field goal protection, anything like that, what you're trying to do is you're protecting the inside gap. You have to protect the inside gaps from A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. And everybody usually is caving in towards the middle, and you can see it. And it's really cool to see it from the end zone view because you can see how their legs are. Everybody kind of locks legs, so they step hard to the inside. One leg wraps behind the other, so center's anchored. The left guard wraps around, tackle wrap around, tight end wrap around. He's kind of at an angle there, pretty close to being off the line. By rule, every play you have to have 7 men on the line of scrimmage. Yep. 74 is pretty close. And then you have the wing. Now, 85, phenomenal job because you lean in, and the goal is you push hard with your elbow and kind of your forearm, and then your right arm just kind of, you see people throw their arm out there. But again, if it's blocked ever from the outside, a guy from the outside, that's on the snapper, holder, and kicker. They got to get it off in 1.2 seconds. 1.2 seconds, and if it's not, it's going to get blocked. And if it's on the outside, the only guys getting yelled at are the center, holder, and kicker. Anything in here, man, that's on these guys. I feel like it's a little John Gruden there. Man, watch right here. This little gap. Now, it doesn't get blocked. But look at that. Look at this guy right here.
They totally get through.
Because look at what our left wing, and just for the people that are watching on both punt and PAT field goal, these are just typical linemen, tight ends on both sides, even though it's not a actual tight end, but that's the position called. Yeah. And then these are wings, right? Same with punt, they're wings. So right now, if I'm scouting this next week to play them, I'm going to look at this from one side to the other, and you're all, most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to heavy rush to the side that's the field side, right? So he's on this hash. So you're going to heavy rush here because he has to angle kick this way, and then most guys will kind of sit back here. You don't rush as many there. But man, oh man, look what this left wing does. Remember here, he's anchored, 85's anchored, he's holding his anchor, and see his right arm? Like, that's picture perfect. Like, I would use this at a clinic. And then I'd come to the left side and say, and here's a clinic on what not to do. He leans to the outside. That guy I'll guarantee you, Nick, this guy's been told 1,000 times. Do not go for that guy because you'll open up a gap.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick,
that's how we've blocked a lot of kicks.
No doubt about it, man. And the great thing, the thing about this is this guy actually comes in pretty tight. Usually, if you're going to set up a block, you're going to run this guy kind of up the field, maybe do a little twist. So even though the guy kind of gets tripped up, man, I'm doing something this week to say, hey, let's get after these guys.
Oh, yeah.
So nobody picks up on that really either. But man, oh man, could have got there. They did a pretty good job on the inside. All right, but he's made them both, right? Left hash, right hash. No one's really thinking about it. Hey, he's our guy. He's made a bunch of 36 field goals, making all the PATs. All right, so then this is right after the PAT. We have the big score. So here's the next kickoff. Now, Nick, when we are doing kickoff team, what would you, if you were a coach, and we haven't talked about this, what would you say for yourself keeps you happy in terms of, man, if we can just always kick it off and not kind of, touchback, where would you always like the offense to start? And there's no right answer here. But just kind of like for you, like, oh man, if they get outside
my offense or the opposing offense?
Well, let's go both directions. Let's say if we're kicking off,
all right,
you're hoping that if they catch the ball at the goal line and they're bringing it out, what do you hope that we keep them in before you're like, oh man, that's a bummer. They get to start at the blank yard line.
I'd like to keep them within the 25-yard line because, if you get a touchback, that's where you are. Anything beyond that, in my opinion, is extra gained yards. So definitely inside the 25, as close to the end zone as they can get. 10, 5, 1. That's ideal. But
It's absolutely ideal. 25
Yep.
and less, because they didn't get a first down off of that, right? Like you said, the kickoff return, the touchback takes you to the 25. They don't get to the 25. There's no extra first down they got.
Right.
Sorry, I just wanted to give you play with the new little toy.
You're good.
The new toy that my son gave me for the show. Get the other direction. You're on kickoff return. You get the ball. What makes you, obviously you want to return for a touchdown, but what do you go, man, that's great. Like excited. We're going to be pumped, man. We don't need any yards to get a field goal. Or what have you. 35?
Yeah, because that's a first down.
All right, man. I love it. And that's something that we'll talk about a lot with people that are out there watching, is that on special teams, you look at it from an offensive defensive standpoint. So even for myself as a coach, we would add and subtract, we'd let the players see the overall yardage and those type of things, but then we add and subtract from the special teams from our total offense and total defense just for ourselves. We wouldn't give that to the newspapers or to the online for the newspapers that are online and stuff. But if we were able to return it, for us it was the 20-yard line. So if we got to the 40, that was 2 extra first downs to us, right? Conversely, if we kept the team, pin them in the 10-yard line or something, that we'd take away one of the first downs, because that's the percentages of scoring are better or they're worse, right? So that brings me to this. Another big thing that I think is pretty important here. So this is our kickoff following the score. It's not the one at the end of the first half, so it's still in the first half. And I always felt like, Nick, as a coach, and people may disagree, but I think it was part of the reason why I think coaches that have decent careers do have success, and why I do think Pete Carroll is a good coach, even though you might not see it with discipline or something like that. You owe it to players to nitpick the little things. And if a player does not want to be nitpicked, then he's not ready for prime time. He's not ready for Friday Night Lights. He's not ready for Saturday college football. He's not ready for the NFL. Totally. You have to want someone to get, that's why you're a 4.7 GPA, man, because your parents are probably like, get it done, Doogie Howser, MD. You're going to be a future doctor at 17 years old. Not kidding. I know your parents aren't like that at all. But you know what I mean? Like, you want coaches to pick it up. Like, you don't want to be embarrassed in front of 60,000 people. So here's the kickoff coverage. All right, so kickoff coverage comes down. He bounces it out. So for you, that's not too bad, right? You got to the 35-yard, or 32-yard line. You'd like him to stay at the 25. So here's my breakdown of it. When we come down, and this is something for us to watch, so it's something that we'll do for everybody who's out there watching, is I'm just bringing up some things for people to kind of get educated a little bit on, so you can see, and I'll be doing the same thing tomorrow on a really deep level, but Nick and I are really focused on the special teams because we love it so much. So when you come down on kickoff, same thing on punt coverage, but really on kickoff, you want to create an umbrella. Now, I don't have my arc preset right now, so I'm going to do it with just lines real quick. But basically, you're trying to create a little bit of we call it the umbrella, and then this is the guy that's going to be, kind of getting the ball. He's the stick of the umbrella, right? Yeah. So what you need though is this is R1 and this is L1. So from outside in, for people watching on kickoff team, you count outside in. And McAfee was just talking about this morning. It's kind of cool.
He was.
You got L1, L2, L3, L4, L5, R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, and all those 5 have to stay on the side of the kicker. They no longer can go to the other side. So when you kick off, you're wanting your number ones. They have what's called contain. This is the only educational piece I'll talk on kickoff here. These outside guys, contain means 2 things and 2 things only, ever, in all of football. Contain. Keep the guy inside and in front of you. That's your job. Contain is keep the guy inside and in front of you. All right, great umbrella. We're squeezing him down. All right, we're getting down to the spot we need to get to. And now all of a sudden, you can see that this guy doesn't have to worry about it. And the ball, when it goes away that way, his job is to start kind of chasing across the top. But the umbrella's good. Kicker's back here as a safety. Contain guys, it seems like he's doing a perfect job, right? He's going to keep him inside and in front of him. Right now, he's inside and in front of him. And right now, he'd be tackled at the 25. Inside and in front of him. Inside in front of him. Inside in front of him. Outside. No longer in front of him. Instead of 25-yard line.
That goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. Our angles.
Angles. Nick LeBeau. Nick LeBeau is just cashing in on it. So what you get here is you get outside. Now, what helps, and this is why I think our special teams coach is doing probably a really good job on this one, we might see a replacement here at R1 that no one will pay attention to, right? Like no one's going to go to the next game or watch the next game and go, oh, R1 got replaced because we're too busy talking about Trey Flowers. Those other people. But watch this linebacker, because basically kickoff team is defensive players. It's linebackers and DBs for the most part, because you want guys that can tackle to defensive special team. All right, so as this guy's going down there, the nice part about this to end this play is right here. You can see where 57, where he was inside. And when you create your umbrella, you try to keep kind of 2 to 3 yard spacing. So he's got that. Like it doesn't matter how far down the field you are. You just don't want to create lanes. So this guy needs to stay between number 1 and number 3. And this is a safety. You always have 2 safeties. So it's a kicker. He's probably over here to the left. We don't have the end zone view this week. Kicker's to the left, safety to the right. Your other 9 guys are going down. He does a nice job of keeping his arms right here, keeping his arms free. And now he realizes that contain man went down. Nick, have you ever had a student in your class that was like a class clown?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Many.
You know what happens when you kick the class clown out of class? What happens in the class?
Well, usually it's fine for a couple days and then a new one.
And then a new one is born, right? A new one gets hatched.
Oh yeah.
You replace the class clown with the class clown, right? And, the good thing for you is that you're the smartest kid in the class probably. So when you leave, they don't replace the smartest kid with the smartest kid. It's just the next smartest kid in the class, but it's not Nick LeBeau. But the next class clown. Now, that's the invert of what I'm kind of saying here. But the point being is you replace the contain with the contain.
Yeah.
So in basketball, it's pick the picker. Here it's contain the contain, replace the contain. So once someone realizes that someone's basically like they're running a sweep now, well, a good linebacker knows, hey, my corner just came off the edge on a blitz. He missed the running back. I've got to force it back inside. And that's what 57 does. Yeah. Fantastic job. Because, if he gets around the outside, now, granted, we got a dude that'll drill him. Most guys don't. Like, this is McAfee Jr. But 57, man, phenomenal job of containing it. Even if he didn't make the tackle, what do you see, man?
Stops him. They totally contain him and they force him. They didn't really even make a tackle. He just went down.
And Nick LeBeau used the NFL term I was looking for without even being cute. I won't give you the 12 stamp, but he forced him, right? Force is the key word there. Force or secondary force is a strong term used all the time in NFL terminology, all football terminology. So he forces him back in to where, guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4 dudes are waiting, and Belfour's waiting if he wants to get him. And then we got these guys kind of as safety. So it basically looks like a defense handling a running game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that dude got very, very lucky because this could have been real ugly if 57 back here didn't get stuffed here. Yeah. Maybe this guy misses block. If he ends up here, man, that's a world of hurt, right? I mean, think if he got up in here where that lead blocker was, and now he's gone because the lead blocker gets to the safety, right? Look at the lead blocker.
And then it's a whole different ball game if he breaks through and scores.
Yeah, I mean, look at that right there. He gets around. If 57's not there, it's walled here, right? That whole look right there, man.
And that's a lot of field.
Walled. The only saving grace is that we'd have a kicker that would probably drill him. But he probably gets another 20 yards. So that's why I asked the question, like 25-yard line. We got pretty lucky there, but man, good job by him, poor job by other dudes. So
yeah.
All right. So with that, we just got a couple left. So far we're getting almost to halftime. So Nick, give me your feedback before we hit the other special teams play on what the last drive of the first half. Let's take a little break from special teams back to the overall game. Oh, we get the ball. We got to go, however many yards, and now it's Russell Wilson time, receiver time, quick hitting time. What did you sense? What did you see? What did you?
I was
still going into halftime. What was kind of the flow and flavor in the Nick LeBeau household?
I was very happy to see just the play calling, the execution on that drive, because while the Seahawks have always been pretty good at the end of the games, if they need to, getting down the field, scoring, winning the game, they haven't really been super good at the kind of clock management aspect of this. We'll see a lot of there's like a minute left with one timeout. We're at our own 30 or whatever, and we'll throw like 6 yards right to the middle of the field. But what we saw a lot of corner out routes where the receiver was breaking in, getting a nice 7 to 10 to even 15 yards, coming right back in, catching it, boom, right out of bounds, clock stops. And then we got down the field so quick that we had enough time where we could utilize the running backs in the red zone via the passing game, running game, and we could really target that midfield and go for a more open and spread offense because we had the time because we got down there so quickly. Then boom, touchdown.
Boom, boom, boom is right. So here's the thing, Nick. So we go 7 plays, 75 yards in 48 seconds. Now here, and I'm breaking down that drive a lot tomorrow compared to some other stuff. There's a heavy part of my show tomorrow that's got breakdown on it. Because here's why. Russell Wilson is at his absolute best in the late part of the games, right? If I have to say, hey, you get 3 quarterbacks in the NFL to pick in the final minute of a game, who do you want? Well, immediately the first 3 I'm going to say are going to be Wilson, Brady, Mahomes, and then I think about it, and there's probably a couple other dudes. But right away, those are the names that are going to come up.
Yep.
If I need someone for the whole game, I don't know where exactly I'd place Russell, and I'm going to reveal a little bit more tomorrow on that. But here's why in the final minute he's so great, and I'm trying to figure out why. Even with the tempo, you talked a lot about tempo before the show in our production meeting. Every single throw he made, which was he had 5 of them, and then they had the one the kind of the draw run inside and the Carson touchdown. But all of his throws were 1-step or 3-step, and every one of them I had to go back and I'm with Dork this with clocks and tickers and stuff. All of them he got off in less than 2 seconds. Yeah. 1.8 was the longest he had the ball in his hands. All 5 throws, 1.8 seconds. Get a throw, 1, 2, 3 throw, and I don't care if it's prevent or not.
Mm-hmm.
He's great when he can do.
And I'll tell you this.
Tell me, talk.
A lot of the receptions on that drive were from our best route running receiver, Tyler Lockett, because Tyler Lockett can get up there. He's a quick guy, and he can make quick, subtle moves like Doug Baldwin would do. And that's a key part, in my opinion, of how the drive worked.
Lockett had a couple. Swain had one. DK did get one in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the quick route running, and that's why when we talk tempo, like it's just crazy to kind of see the difference between. And I have said all along, like you got to give Waldron time to work it out in the game.
For sure, it's
right?
only a second regular.
It's only a second game, and it's just too easy. When last week Lockett gets some deep touchdowns, this week Lockett, like I love that Lockett's the deep guy.
Oh, for
sure. I want DK to learn how to master the shorter routes. We know he can run fast and deep,
mm-hmm.
but if teams have to respect the deep part with Lockett, man, that's great. But you nailed it. The best receivers of all time, what made them fantastic, and Deion Sanders talked about this. He's talked about it many times. I watched a video with him on him the other day, and he was saying the reason why it was so tough to get, to guard Jerry Rice and I just lost him, Dallas Cowboy wide receiver, Michael Irvin, was they were just, and he mentioned Largent, said just as fast out of the break as they were into the break. And as Mike Haynes used to say from Raiders, and Darrell Green, who was considered the fastest athlete in the NFL prior to Deion Sanders, he was like a 4.2 40 guy, played 20 years. He said the same thing about those dudes, that they were so fast in and out of their break. He called it an event. He said there was never an event when they were breaking down. To where other receivers, you see them chop their arms really quick or chop their feet. He said, but Largent, Rice, all those type of dudes, they would get in and out of their break so fast.
Yeah.
That, how do you defend it? Well, if you watch Lockett, I'm telling you, man, and you've agreed with me on this, and I know you do. I think Lockett is the premier receiver in the NFL right now. If you're picking a group of 5 guys, right, 3 to 5 guys, I don't think you can say anybody's at the very best. Devontae Adams maybe true number 1, but man, him, Jones, those other guys, he's right there. DK has a ways to go. When you're talking overall game, route running, how to catch the ball, circling up, blocking, that I'll be breaking down tomorrow, or lack thereof, right?
When you consider the deep route, DK's pretty high on the list for a lot of people. But then when you incorporate really everything else that goes into being a wide receiver, he's got a ways to go.
Yeah. And again,
which he should, because it's only his 3rd season.
Yeah, I mean he's a young dude. He's like you said, just his 3rd season. He didn't play a full college career.
Yeah.
I love the hair. I love the personality. But there's times when you have to keep the personality in check. Which tomorrow, I think, and I will be talking about it a lot tomorrow. just the difficulty it is for a coach on a lot of those decisions when you have, I used to do a quiz for, I call it the Gridiron Moms Club, and I'd have all the moms, the grandmas, sisters, everybody come in, and I do a big, fun clinic with them and talk football and make it fun and everything else, because I wanted them to come to games and enjoy their sons playing and not feel like, oh, it's just dad talking football. And no, what am I going to do? I was like, I'm going to teach you football, so you send dad to get the popcorn. But the point was, I wanted them to understand that I have 8 seconds to make a choice, right? You have 8 seconds if you're coaching Nick or whatever, Pete Carroll, all those guys. 8 seconds really to make a decision, whether it's calling a play or dealing with personnel, and then we all have an eternity to second guess it. Totally. An eternity,
and it makes it 10 times easier at least when the play doesn't go well.
Yeah. And so when when you have a player who's steaming and you love Metcalf's fire, but when it gets to the point where there's penalties, and then you have to decide, do I teach him a lesson right now and take him out, which Pete Carroll did. Yeah. He took him out for a play, and that next play was 3rd and 14. 3rd and 14.
He's our deep guy.
He's our deep guy, and we don't have him on the field. And I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Learn the lesson now. Yeah. Because you hope it won't haunt you later in the game, which it did. He did it again, but you hope in the season. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah, and that kind of goes into kind of the last few years. We've kind of had a lack of this discipline on our team. Not necessarily, not the coaches, but the players holding each other accountable.
Oh, speak to that. Unpack that a little bit.
During the Legion of
perfect
Boom
direction, man.
During the Legion of Boom era, even a bit after that, while we still had those kind of key guys, the Doug Baldwins, the Richard Shermans, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner in his prime, and even I'll throw in there linebacker coach Ken Norton Jr. And I want to emphasize the linebacker coach, because since he's kind of moved to defensive coordinator, he has a lot more responsibility. But when he was really a linebackers coach during those Super Bowl years, he had the time where he could get up there, fire guys up, hold them accountable. And the same thing with Doug Baldwin and Richard Sherman, Cam, the whole Legion of Boom, and that team, they were holding each other accountable. If DK was doing that, if DK was on our team in 2013 and he was doing that, I am sure that Richard Sherman would be in his face on the sideline. And we really just don't have that on our team because, Russell Wilson's a pretty non-conflict guy, which is fine. He doesn't have to be that guy, but we do need to have that leader that will hold each other accountable. We need to have that mentality in the locker room if we want to win the Super Bowl. And I don't think we can win the Super Bowl unless we have that, especially with guys like DK and DJ Reed, who's getting an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after AJ Brown had burned him like at least 3 times in the game, and we were lucky he dropped the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we had 7 of them. We had 10 penalties for 100 yards. That's 10 first downs that you give to a team.
Yep.
And you could say there's timely penalties, but then there's some that, and I think you just nailed it, right? You can say it's Coach Carroll, and it all starts and stops with him. But I agree 100%, man. Like, we don't have that guy. Like, Russell's a leader, but he's not the leader that people like to make him out to be, in terms of he's not going to get in your face and cause chaos, because I think of what the friction that was caused years ago.
He's not in that way of like Tom Brady is.
Man, can you imagine?
And even Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan. A lot of people say Tom Brady, but Matt Ryan, I've even seen some of Jared Goff where he's in guys' faces, just swearing at him. You need to get set right now.
I'll tell you who else does it, who's having a good start, is Mr. Stafford, my guy down in LA, who I'm not looking forward to playing, but I think he's off to a good start, man.
I mean,
Kyler Murray,
those are 2. I know it's only week 2 going into week 3, but those are 2 already MVP candidates, both in our division.
I heard a crazy stat. I mean, unbelievable stat. I got to give it to Rich Eisen. He's the only guy I watch on a consistent basis. Other than that, I really don't watch too much, because I like to have my opinions be my own, because you start watching too much and then you feel like you're getting saturated with people's thoughts. So I honestly don't know what people out there, the pundits, are saying about Russell or Pete or defense or anything else. But if the Seahawks had won, it would have been the first time in NFL history, or since we went to these new divisions, that all 4 teams in a division won 2 games in a row, not just to start the season, but any time.
Wow.
Like, think about that. Like, it's almost kind of stunning to think that never has there been a time that all 4 teams had a 2-game winning streak during the same 2-week period. And if Seahawks win, yeah, oh man,
every single game matters in this division.
Yeah, every single game matters.
And I'm pretty sure that going back to kind of that whole prediction, ceiling and floor, I'm very sure that we will be at least splitting with every single one of our division mates. And I also heard a stat last week that week 1 was, I think, the only week where every single team and I'm not sure if this is accurate, that every single team in the NFC West and AFC West all won a game, and combined they were 8-0. And then they did like the rest of the league combined, and it was, or like the rest of like divisions like AFC South, NFC South, and we had the highest.
Yeah,
very
no surprise.
elite divisions.
Good. Definitely 2 very elite divisions. All right, before we go to the final couple plays and wrap things up here, we got some people that have showed up. Life and Sports Talk with Jake. Hey, what's up with you, man? Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, tomorrow there's going to be, I think, I think it's definitely for me. I'm excited about it every day. I've told my wife, like, okay, I'm doing it tonight. I'm like, oh, I better wait because I'm going to be doing the show, my 12 for 12 show every Tuesday is now what I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it Tuesday at 7. Hopefully the all 22 comes back. But on Sunday nights, I'll also, and you and I might do some things also on Sunday nights are immediate reaction things. But Tuesdays, I'll have my 12 for 12, which is 12, my top 12 reactionary things and 12 breakdown plays for the 12s that I think were impactful on the game. Trey Smith, thanks for being here. I know some people have been sending me things like, "Hey, you're all live. It's good to." like Eric right here. Here's Eric, man. Get a shirt. Marsh isn't dead. Nope, not dead. I've been taking care of some stuff, but really excited. Football season's here. I've been at some youth football practices, high school games. First time my son isn't. The first time I'm not coaching anybody, and my son graduated instead of going to play college football with the choice he had. He joined the United States Marine Corps. So,
wow,
very, very cool there. And lots of good stuff. Look at this right here, man. Love it. Wait till I break out my Star Wars themed background. And my son built the 4,750 piece Lego Star Destroyer. In fact, got it right over here. So I'm trying to figure out how to get it up there. But yeah, man, I'll get all the Star Wars stuff out because I'm the biggest. I know Norb Camp thinks he's the biggest Star Wars junkie, but there's a massive dork inside of me, the 5-year-old kid that will never go away. And man, this is here. Speaking of Star Wars, there's another one. Look at that. Hey, Nick, you got a question for it. Hey, Nick. You say, hey, Nick, we should run the ball. I thought he was asking.
We should run the ball, yes. Got to run more balanced offense. Can't be like the Giants and Washington on Thursday where it was all passing on first down with 13 minutes left. Yeah,
and I think you saw it right there with, when you get you get some sort of a running back like a Henry that's getting 35 runs. Oh, yeah. People talked about letting Russ cook. Remember when we did the show last spring when I asked you guys to bring in with you or bring onto the show how many times you thought Russ should throw the ball, who he should throw it to, how many runs, all those things. And the numbers were kind of bounce all over the map. And that you had, I think you're right in the 20 to 25 range, which is where I would have them because I've always said 18 to 22 passes. Because if there's 70 plays in a game on average in the NFL in the last 3 years, I think is the stat they showed, 72 plays over the course of a game. If you're throwing it 30 to 35 times a game, that means you're only running it 30 or 40 times. But if you're only running it, people are like, oh, we want to only need to run it 20 or 25 times. Well, what, you want them to throw it 50 times? And don't do well when that happens.
Yeah, I don't think people necessarily, when they say that, realize that while Russ is a superstar or whatever, he's a star player, great, he's healthy, he can still get burned out. And if he is throwing that much each game, he's definitely going to get burned out during the playoffs. And then if we do that, he gets burned out in the playoffs, we lose. And then people ask the question of, why'd we lose in the playoffs? Then point it to Pete.
Yeah. And where you get burned out? You get burned out at the -1 yard line. But because I think you're Russell Wilson and because it's a home game, it gets
You
called
get it
a
on.
1 yard line tackle versus a safety.
Yeah, that's
And again, I've heard so many people, and you actually brought up too, that a lot of people are blaming the lineman. And again, it's not the lineman; it might be a lineman who's missing a block. But how about the other 35 times when he got the passes off and the running game and all this other stuff?
Or the other 4 times where he overthrew it to a wide receiver the exact same route.
Yeah.
And then the other time where he ran it back into the end zone.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I think we just have to make sure that we love the Seahawks, we love Ross, we love all those things, but I think people are at a point now where when you make demands, which you did, I'm one of those people that says I think it's okay to say, hey, look, you made the demand, so now you got to match up with some of those. You have to be willing to take on some of the heat, because with the contract and those other things, we couldn't expand as much as we wanted to. And those glory years, they were led by Legion of Boom, Marshawn Lynch, and Russell was the kind of the Ryan Tannehill at the time, right? Like he's making special plays, but he wasn't over the top. And then when you need him in the final minute, and then he boomed. But we've waned on the Legion of Boom. That's gone away. Marshawn Lynch goes away, and now Russ had to take on that. And Bobby Wagner's a great player. Mm-hmm. But man, like how much did we? I would have loved to have paid $15 million for KJ Wright this last weekend. I think he'd have made a difference, right? So
especially on those the screenplays where I think Henry got like 20, 30 yards.
Yeah.
I mean,
and KJ was great on those screens. No doubt about it. All right, man. Let me see. I just want to make sure. Oh, my buddy right here, Tyler Parcher. He's on everything all the time, man.
Oh yeah.
He's got his dog on there. All right, Tyler. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, tomorrow 12 for 12s. There's gonna be some big time telestrating if you guys like that, and I'll have my special telestrating program going there. All right. So let me get the last couple pieces here. Here's the big one, right? No one thinks about those extra points till they're missed. Now, I tell you what, Nick, I've been watching lots of PATs and field goals this year in the NFL, and it has been amazing to watch. There's something going on in the stadiums, and I'm not a big conspiracy theorist guy, but the ball that gets kicked that used to just kind of go straight, you're starting to see the ball start to do these kind of go one direction and kind of move this way, and it's like it's driving as it goes. I mean, it's just crazy. And I'm not saying that someone's sitting there with some wind blower.
Remote control.
Yeah, moving it back and forth. But I don't know. Maybe someone should check the, what do they call the thing that's on the 4 cords, the flying around doing the extra television for the extra camera. Because, man, there's something. So, anyway. All right, so here's the PAT. Now, we talked earlier. He was kicking from the left, going the other direction. He went left hash, and then he went right hash. He chooses to go for the right hash on this one. Okay, we just went up 30 to 17. 30 to 17. Is that right? We went up by 2 scores. 30 to 16. 30 to 16. All right, so here we go. Here's the PAT. Right here, it's like, oh, boom. But you can see right at the beginning of it, before the doink, a little bit of a, see how it did that quick little curve at the beginning? I'm telling you, man.
What I've noticed before with Myers is when he's on a certain hash, he kicks a lot directly towards the other side, the opposite side.
Yes.
And here he really kicked straight.
Yeah, and what's surprising,
which is kind of
unusual
for him.
Yeah, and what's really surprising, though, the fact that it went where it did, and obviously we're not straight on, so I'm not going to draw a line there. But just as you teach a quarterback to put his front foot, your front foot becomes a pointer for you. They used to say, and I hate to use the old rifle terms here, but as a quarterback, you used to say, scope it, here, and then fire it here, or take a picture with your front shoulder. Then after you throw it, take a picture with your other shoulder. That's how you get your whole body into the. But your front foot is pointing. It's the laser beam to where you're throwing, and your back foot kind of anchors and sets to 90 degrees. Same thing with a kicker. Your plant foot, typically where it's pointing, is where the ball's going to go. And it's like soccer. The weird thing is, like in soccer, you say head down, follow through. That will keep the ball down. In football, it's head down, follow through. That gets the ball up, like a 9-iron. So look at his foot here. His foot is actually angled. His foot is angled this direction, right? And the hold itself is really pretty solid. I mean,
yeah, it is. Everything was really executed pretty well from the snap. It looks from here like pretty solid blocking. The hold was good. There wasn't any wind.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it was just kind of a doink.
I mean, these guys. It was. I don't even think it was a kinda. I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
It was a pure doink. But yeah, you're right. I mean, look at the whole. I mean, everything's perfect about that, right? I mean, just a picture perfect hold right there. So yeah, I was just really, really kind of surprised to see that happen. But then right at the beginning of the kick, there's just a little bit of a kind of a weird kind of turn that takes place.
It was not an ear. It was just kind of a weird.
See that right there? It's just a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Coach Marsh and conspiracy theory. So, just took a little turn, and then I mean, how does it make that little turn and then come straight right back? It's like there's a magnet in the ball, like Brady had the deflate gate. Maybe there's magnet gate going on, because I mean that thing is a 4-inch thick pipe, and you got a 8-inch wide football, and you can hit that thing like it's crazy. And you're right, he always seems to drill them up, and he made 36 consecutive field goals. So it's just crazy when that happens. Now the protection, obviously, someone had been coached. Because now 35 gets around the corner, but he's not even close, right? Not even close. Right. He's containing it. They're trying to get the rush. 29 doesn't nearly get inside because he stays squared. So pretty good job they at least made that correction. But the hold is picture perfect, man. I mean, you can even see I mean it's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty much perfect. So, yeah, I just thought that was pretty crazy that was that's what took place there on that one.
Definitely a fluke.
Without a doubt. Which is a little bit different than, let me just see if I can show this real quick before I show the final play. All right. Right here, thanks to Nick LeBeau, back in the PrehistorHAWK era.
Oh, yeah.
You first saw Jim Zorn as the holder. And then when Jim Zorn took off and Dave Craig came in, he was the quarterback. Who was the holder there, Nick?
Well, from the looks of it, it looks like a wide receiver is holding, and not any receiver. It looks like Steve Largent.
Yeah, just the Hall of Fame wide receiver.
Yeah.
Kind of that load bearing thing we were talking about, right? Where you get, no superstar wide receiver today would go out there and hold the football. Can you imagine Russell? Like if we sent Russell out to hold for the PATs and field goals, people would freak. But I would look at it and go, why not? Just like on kickoff return, if we need a big kickoff return, who do you think I want back there?
I'd much rather have Lockett.
We already know does it. So we know that Lockett does it. But who else is? Let's say he's having a good game. Who else do you think I would like to see back there? Who's really thick, really tall, really big, really strong, super fast, like world-class speed, and likes to just run straight ahead. And we need to have a very important touchdown or big return. Why wouldn't you put a guy by the name of DK Metcalf back there? Because we're load bearing him or we protect him. Kickoff return. Why not put your fastest guy back there? And people would freak out. Like, wow, why do we have DK? They might get excited for a minute. You know why they put Largent back there? Because teams had to respect it. They couldn't rush it from certain sides. Like, it could be a fake. It could be this. It could be that. Mm-hmm. Man, I would love to have Russell out there on field goals.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, just that whole aspect. I think having a quarterback out there actually would what's the word I'm trying to look for? It would de-incentivize necessarily really going all out for a block, because it could very easily be a fake. Because, when a punter's out there, they're not always the most athletic players. Yeah. But when you have a quarterback out there, now all of a sudden, especially like if it's a Russell Wilson, you all of a sudden have speed. Then you have an ability to throw on the run.
Yeah, and you said it. Yeah, you said it, man. It keeps them from wanting to do that. Like when I was scouting against a team, if I knew that their quarterback or a stud player was the holder, we usually chose not to, or if we were going to rush, it was just going to be right up the middle. Like, hey, we got to make sure we cover the tight ends and the two wings because they're eligible, and a kicker might go out like Efren Herrera did. That's why Jimmy Zorn was great at being the holder, because he was left-handed also. So with a right-footed kicker, he's taking that snap. But if it was kind of bad, he could step up, and if he could just step up and immediately start running to his left, and you got guys breaking to the corner of the end zone and one guy going to the flat, and a kicker that might be running an option with you, they had to respect it, and you saw that they were constantly utilizing them. So it just adds a neat factor to the game that I wish we would do more, but we don't. We don't do it more. we don't do it. Yeah. So, all right, let me go to the final piece here of the puzzle that we have. Let me get it all set up. There. All right. So final one for tonight is going to be in the play that's right here. All right. This was a quite a play. I mean, it took place at the end. Actually, took place at the end of the half. You'll see it as it comes up here. I wish I had my sound effects going. And boom, there's the sound effect you get. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, there's very few times when I jump out of my seat. Oh man, absolutely. I mean, when I watch a game, I'm usually pretty quiet. I don't say much, like I said, I kind of look at it like it's 3 days after the film, or after the game. Lows aren't too low, highs aren't too high. In fact, I like watching it with my buddies at times because they'll freak out and then I'll kind of, hey man, remember it's like this, or hey, it's not all Russell's fault in an interception. Okay, that's not was the lineman, wasn't the lineman, whatever. But man, when there's a special teams player like this, I mean, it is just awesome to see, and especially by your captain.
Oh, yeah.
He's the captain. He flies through there.
Especially from your fullback.
Yeah, and this is when when people talk about getting rid of Pete Carroll and those type of things. I consider myself a player's coach. I think today's athlete needs more player coaches. I mean, you still got to be disciplined. I wasn't like chum with the dudes, but definitely if we had a big hit, that was me, man. Like I was pumping the fists up in the air and high fiving, and I feel like teams could feed off that adrenaline. I think there's a reason why good athletes come and sign with Seattle. And if Pete Carroll goes, if we get rid of him, who are we going to get?
We're definitely going to be losing free agents.
Yeah, I mean, how many? Dallas is a big name place. The Giants, the Jets, a lot of big name cities and everything. They're not getting a lot of the great players. Yeah.
Jamal Adams.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Tyler Lockett, who just talk about how great and etc. Who talk about how great this atmosphere is. Well, Pete Carroll's built up this locker room. He's built up this atmosphere. And without him, who knows? Could get another a guy that just doesn't bring that same energy. And
I think he's part of the 12s too, right? That's why it just bothers me. It's almost hypocritical, I think, when the 12s want to get rid of a guy who is one of us, in my opinion. Like why is Mike Holmgen retired and living in Seattle, like the greater Seattle area?
He's a 12.
Because he's a 12. Like he became a part of the 12s. Not a lot of places do that. It's not that baseball players but Ken Griffey lives in this area. A lot of former, Sean Kemp.
And it's not for the weather.
It's not for the weather. Largen only left because he wanted to, be a congressman and those type of things. So that's why I think there's interesting conversation around hey, if Russell, when he's retired, would he end up here in San Diego? But that's a conversation for another show. I did want to show one other thing on this because I thought it was pretty interesting. I'm not going to put up the new rule since we're near at the end of our time frame here, but there is a rule that you can only basically have, because I have it drawn up. You can't have less than 8 people within 25 yards. So they've got their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But you can't have more than 9 because then teams were stuffing the box. So here it is, the end of the half. They're kind of expecting a squib kick, and they're special teams. You can tell they work on it because this guy actually does a shift stuff that if you want to learn special teams, watch this show. I think Nick and I are going to teach you a lot of fun stuff throughout the course of the season. Okay, if you watch the middle back. Notice how he starts creeping up. He can sense where the ball's going, and it's going to be a line drive. Yes, absolutely. Now it goes a little in the air, but man, did he read that or what?
Oh yeah.
Right. That's great just scouting.
The way he got it up and to go a distance and then to just boom, drop down.
Yeah, I mean this guy. Yeah, I mean so he's getting the tag. He can obviously tell laces are probably face that direction. They've created a pocket here. So typically you teach your guys to be at a face. You teach them to be shortstops is what you teach the front guys to do in the second wave. Yeah, so these guys are at a 45-degree angle. Yeah, so they're 45-degree angle. They're they're not 10 yards off. They're 15 yards off because they're going to set up a return. But they think if that ball gets hard off the ground, you 5 do not touch it. Let these 3 or 4 guys get it, and then
those are the quick, athletic. Speed.
And then maybe get a return. But man, this guy right here, he darn near got himself in position to get the ball.
Yeah.
And then you can see as they run back.
And then the bounce. The bounce is just huge.
Yeah. The bounce is huge.
Perfect kind of backspin on the kick to where when it lands, it just kind of rolls rather than kind of landing flat and bouncing back up towards another guy.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about with kickers and punters, or with the return men. What you teach them is
look at that skip.
There's the one bounce rule, which is on a punt, you hope that it takes that kind of roll and it gets that little hop like you're talking about. You hope you get that second hop. If if it hits the ground, stay away from it. Well, man, like you said, this sucker just skims and skids and skids and skims and just it never takes off. So that's already hard. Now he's squatting down in feet in cement, as we call it. He's got his feet in cement picking up the ball.
And usually where an onside kick's more around the 30 or 40, this is darn near on the 10 or 15.
Yeah, bingo. And now our contain, 25 is great job of contain, inside, outside. I mean, the umbrella is super tight, right? So we've got a great tight umbrella. This guy, even though this guy got blocked, he knew to go to the left side because that's where the ball is. This guy went to the left side because that's where the ball is, and there's a contain guy. So that allows, Belfort gets through there because he's just so fast and hard and hungry. But, man, that's just awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Boom.
And then boom. Actually, I want to give props, too, because not only for the hit, which was obviously great, but if you rewind it, I'm kind of surprised that guy didn't fumble the football because it didn't really look like he was expecting it. He was it looked like he was more looking the other way. Ballore kind of came from his blind side. And so props to him for not fumbling.
Yeah, without a doubt. Because he's holding it loose too, right? I mean, look, you can see space in between his arms.
Ballore could have very well just punched it right out.
Yeah, which we don't. I was going to bring that up. I'll bring it up a little bit tomorrow because we don't see defensively. We don't get a lot of wrap and rip stuff. Like remember how Earl Thomas used to punch at it. Other guys harder on kickoff stuff, but always are getting the fumbles. Yeah, all the time. Him and Cam Chancellor. But watch this return guy. How when he comes up, he thinks the ball's going to take a right rudder turning, as we call it. He thinks it's going to go here, and you'll see him jab step left, and he thinks it's going down. It's just he's such a great kicker. But you see, he goes, he just stutters for just a second. Like, stutter, I'll get it over here. Okay. And yeah, man, he does not see it coming. Good night, nurse. My special teams coach used to say, like, people in the hospital are getting knocked out, like, all right, good night, nurse. He gave him a good night, nurse, or what we also used to call it a woo hit. Woo.
And I'll say this to kind of tease for a future show that's coming off based on our 2017 season and kind of the special teams there. I'll say this: Blair Walsh would not have made that kick.
No doubt about it.
Not even close.
Yeah, not even close. Not even close. Now, and you know what I love? I mean, this is why watching film is great. Okay, watch number 33, Adams, who's not on the kickoff team. All right, he's right here on the sideline. Okay, just watch him. I mean, he's amped up. That's what you want, man. Like, wow. And I think he's going to get frustrated if other dudes don't come up to that level. If he feels like he's the guy who's the amped guy, if other guys aren't catching up to him on that, and again, they don't need to be rah-rah, because, I mean, Wagner's not a rah-rah guy. He does his job. But when guys feel like they got to overcompensate and, hey, let's go, like when you constantly hear the let's go. It's easy to say that, but you have to show it with a presence. You got to be present with that let's go, right? And I don't see it all the time. And so I think, like I said, I think this is it was a good punch to the gut for us. I think we're going to learn from it. We're going to get better from it. But I just love right here. Like, hey, there's Adams right there. He's hugging him. That goes right to his special teams captain. Says, great job. Gets amped up. And now we go into the half. And yeah, you thought we were going to win. But, man, great job with the adjustments and everything else. So
definitely.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. There's a question for you, it looks like here, Nick LeBeau.
Right.
It's from a guy named John Marsh.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if there's a relation there or not. He says, I may have missed your remarks, but do you feel we have the best punter in the NFL? Nick LeBeau, take that question and run with it, my friend.
Wow. I mean, there are a lot of good punters in the league. A lot of good young punters, too. I feel we definitely, no doubt, have a top 5 punter. Whether I would put him in his 4th season at that number 1 mark is kind of, I'm not sure about that one yet, but I definitely think he's up there, top 5, top 3. Phenomenal punter, and he signed an extension, so he'll be around for a long time.
Oh, I see, Nick LeBeau is Mr. Master when it comes to extensions and contracts. I mean, you want to learn about all that type of stuff. Nick LeBeau has it. When he has answers like that, he gets one of these. Now, I do know that he was number 1 in the league last year in pinning teams inside the 20-yard line.
Yeah.
So that, again, that's phenomenal. Like I talked about earlier with that rugby style punt that he was doing. I mean, it's amazing the way he's got that football just right here, just dropping down, and he's hitting that rugby style. And that's, guys start doing that, and they figure that rugby style kick, and that's when they get it planting down at the 1 and doing that spin back. And it was hard when it used to be the great punters were known for being able to turn, spiral the ball like you're actually throwing it. Punters back in the PrehistorHAWK era would try to hit the speaker that came down at the top of the kingdom, and only Ray Guy was able to do that. Ray Guy was a Hall of Fame guy from the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders. All right, man. John Marsh, thanks for your question. Totally appreciate it. Appreciate you watching the show and being a part of the program, man. Being a part of the program. I'll have to find out that guy's a relative or not. Probably is. Probably a pretty cool dude. Probably has a pretty good son who's a pretty solid athlete, aka my nephew, stud and a half. So, all right, Nick LeBeau. Some final words. Some final words for you.
Well, great show. We got through it. And can't wait for the third one. It was phenomenal. We touched on a lot. Went 25 minutes past our normal kind of bumpers. So that was great. Analyzed a lot of plays. I feel like we learned a lot more about the game too, and not only the game, but just kind of the loss and how we lost and kind of the tendencies from Jason Myers that we can bring into the future weeks and when watching future games and recognize and notice. So it was a great show. Can't wait for next week. Hope everyone in the comments and watching is doing well. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow will be 12 for 12s. 12 for 12. A lot of heavy duty breakdown by myself of the game. A lot of illustration. I received quite a few messages on my private email asking people if I was going to telestrate. I said, yep, this will be the week that I'm breaking out the heavy telestrating. And hey, look at this. One more. It says, agreed, Nick. Great show, guys. I love the emphasis on a portion of the game that no others talk about enough. It was the ultimate difference in our week 2 loss with that missed PAT. Woo. Yeah, without a doubt, man. I think, Nick, as we've talked about, so this is where I'm going to end it on with you. And I told you I'd ask you at the end of the show this question. We talked that there's the ceiling that you had, which was 13-4, 11-6. I had 13-4, down to 10-7 would be the kind of the range, I think. But there's those 3 to 4 games. 3 games is typically what it's been. But now that there's a 17th game, we're going to kind of put it at 3 to 4 games. That special teams determines or dictates whether you won or lost. Now, this is, I think, is a tough one, man, because we saw some breakdowns on the Seahawks offensively and defensively. The Tennessee Titans came in, who I say are going to be the AFC representative when it's all said and done. We've got a stud Hall of Fame running back, Hall of Fame receiver, coach on the rise, quarterback that can handle things. Yeah. But we missed the extra point. I saw, we talked about the breakdown that we had on special teams in a lot of different areas. So of 17 games, Nick LeBeau, are you going to consider this to be one of those wins or losses that will equate to 3 or 4 of those games that have the butterfly effect on the season? Or are you going to save those 3 or 4 for later games coming up? What do you think? Special teams win or lose it for us, or not so much in this game?
I think I'm going to save it. I think while we did miss a PAT, our punts weren't super good. I think looking at our schedule, we have a lot of very tough opponents. And the Seahawks, as you guys probably know if you've been watching for a while, they like to make every game close and entertaining. So I think there's definitely a lot of more games that special teams can definitely play an impact on. We're going to have probably, I think, at least 4 games where it'll potentially be a field goal that determines the win. I think we're going to have a lot of OT this year. So, yeah, I'm going to save it.
You're going to say that you're not going to count it as one of the 3 or 4 games. You're not going to count it. All right. Well,
I think we did too much. We had too many other
bigger mistakes offensively and defensively that cost us.
Exactly.
Okay. And you know what? I'm actually going to call the same thing, even though I think it's easy to say the 1 point. I think there were 2. I think there were 5 others, as I mentioned earlier. There's 5 plays in the first 3 quarters of every game that will truly create a butterfly effect that dictate the end of the game, right? I think there are definitely 5 other plays. I'll go so far as to say there's 12, because I'm going to show 12 tomorrow that aren't even special teams for the most part, that definitely dictated the outcome of the game more than the flaws we saw in special teams. And there was obviously some good stuff, right? The Belfort hit, we saw corrections on, we did see some good things on special teams. That you'd like to think that one point shouldn't hurt you so much, but it wasn't a missed field goal. It wasn't some other big, we didn't give up a kickoff return. To me, I think those losses are when you give up a punt return for a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown, you get beat on a fake field goal, that gets a first down. You get the Giants the other night, get the offsides, defensive tackle gets an offsides, and you give Washington another kick to win the football game. Like that's when special teams can hide. So I'm going to save it also for the next one. All right, man. Well, it was fun doing it with you. I got my PrehistorHAWK football from 1970. I think this is 1979 that I got this one.
Awesome.
So carry off with me. Keep it tight. From the Kingdom, from Nick LeBeau and his Seattle Sports Talk station, this is Coach Marsh. See you tomorrow night on 12 for 12s. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. We'll see you tomorrow.